Can you imagine being the most famous person on the entire planet with the best-selling album in human history, only to have the world whisper that you were flat broke at the very end? It's one of the greatest mysteries in pop culture history. Was Michael Jackson, the legendary king of pop, actually drowning in a sea of debt? Or was his financial situation just a massive smokescreen for a business empire so complex that the average person couldn't even begin to wrap their head around it? You see, the story we've been told and the reality of what was happening behind the scenes are two very different things, and today we're going to peel back the curtain on the most insane financial resurrection ever recorded. Let's take a trip back to June 25th, 2009. It's a day that literally stopped the world. I mean, the internet actually crashed because so many people were searching for the same name at once. But as the grief poured out from every corner of the globe, a much darker narrative started to emerge in the headlines. While fans were mourning a legend, the accountants and lawyers were panicking. The word on the street and across every major news network was that Michael was roughly $500 million in the red. Can you believe that? $500 million in debt. People were painting this picture of a falling star who was living on borrowed time, and quite literally, borrowed money. They said he was losing Neverland Ranch, that his shopping sprees had finally caught up with him, and that the This Is It tour was a desperate last-ditch effort to keep the lights on. Every single headline seemed to focus on the negative aspects of his spending habits. The media absolutely lived for this broke king narrative. It was everywhere. They showed footage of his beloved ranch looking a bit dusty, talked about the mountain of legal fees from his various court battles, and made it seem like Michael was a man with nothing left but his name. But here's where things get really interesting. In the immediate aftermath of his passing, the chaos was absolute. There was a frantic, almost movie-like search for a valid will. Family members, lawyers, and business associates were all scrambling. Where was the document? Who was in charge? For a moment, it looked like his entire legacy was about to be dismantled and sold off to the highest bidder to satisfy his creditors. But then something shifted. It was like a switch was flipped. Suddenly, people realized that while Michael the person was gone, the brand of Michael Jackson was worth more than anyone had ever dared to imagine. Before we continue this wild ride into the billions, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Seriously, let us know, because this story is truly global. How does someone who changed the face of music forever end up facing foreclosure? Was he really that bad with money, or was that just the story they wanted us to believe to keep the vultures away? It turns out that Michael was playing a much deeper game than anyone realized. He wasn't just a performer, he was a collector of assets that were practically priceless. As the dust began to settle, the world started to see the first signs of a financial turnaround that would make Wall Street jealous. This wasn't just about selling a few more copies of Thriller. This was the start of the transition from MJ the entertainer to MJ the posthumous business mogul. The stage was being set for a financial resurrection that would wipe out that $500 million debt in record time. But the battle for his billions was just beginning, and the players who stepped into the spotlight to manage his fortune might just surprise you. There were secret deals, hidden assets, and a legal war brewing that would last for over a decade. The truth is about to come out. Just wait. Enter the two men who would change everything, John Branca and John McClane. These guys are either the ultimate financial saviors of the Jackson name, or just incredibly savvy businessmen who knew exactly how to play the corporate game. Branca, Michael's longtime lawyer, and McClane, a music executive, were named as the co-executors of the estate. They walked into a situation that would make most accountants run for the hills. They were facing a mountain of debt that stood at $500 million, but they had a vision that went beyond just paying off creditors. They wanted to build a lasting empire. Then there are the beneficiaries, the ones who truly have the most at stake. Michael's children, Prince, Paris, and Biggie, have grown up in the shadow of this massive fortune. Their lives changed overnight, not just because they lost their father, but because they became the heirs to a throne that was essentially under construction. Can you imagine the pressure? One day you're a kid whose life is kept private behind masks, and the next, you're part of a billion-dollar legacy. Today they are young adults carving out their own paths, but their lifestyle is funded by a machine that Michael started and his executors perfected. We can't forget the matriarch, Katherine Jackson. She has been the steady hand in all of this, acting as the primary guardian for the kids for years, and ensuring they had a sense of family stability amidst the legal storms. But it hasn't been all peace and quiet. Katherine has been involved in her own share of legal battles to ensure her grandchildren's future was secure and that the estate was acting in their best interests. It's a complex dynamic, balancing the needs of a grieving family with the logic of a multi-million-dollar business. The real genius move, the one that kept the lights on when everyone thought the bank was coming for the keys, was Michael's absolute crown jewel, the Sony ATV music catalog. Back in 1985, Michael did something that people thought was crazy. He bought the publishing rights to the Beatles' songs for $47.5 million. This single asset was what allowed the estate to negotiate from a position of power. It was the leverage they needed to stop the liquidation of his legacy and instead turn it into a money printing machine. Even the iconic Neverland Ranch had to face the cold reality of the business world. Once a magical kingdom of amusement rides and exotic animals, it had to be rebranded as Sycamore Valley Ranch to distance it from the controversies of the past. Watching that property sit on the market for years was bittersweet for fans, wasn't it? It finally sold for a fraction of its original asking price. But while the physical land was sold, the spirit of what Michael built there remains a huge part of the story. How did they actually erase that $500 million debt? It wasn't magic, it was a masterclass in marketing. The documentary deal for This Is It was a massive turning point, bringing in over $260 million worldwide almost instantly. Then came the new music releases, the Cirque du Soleil shows, and the licensing deals that put MJ's face and music back in front of a new generation. In just a few short years, the executors did the impossible. They didn't just clear the debt, they turned the estate into a billion-dollar entity. But here's the thing, where there is massive money, there is almost always a dark side. As the fortune grew, so did the tension within the Jackson family. Rumors started swirling about family feuds and deep-seated resentment from those who felt they were unfairly left out of the will. While the children and Catherine were taken care of, Michael's siblings found themselves on the outside looking in. The whispers of a fake will began to grow louder, and the battle for the king's crown was about to get very, very personal. Just wait until you hear what happened next. As the billions started rolling in, the family drama reached a boiling point that no Hollywood screenwriter could have imagined. You've probably heard the whispers, right? Some of Michael's siblings, including names as big as Janet, Jermaine, and Randy, were reportedly furious when they realized they weren't included in the final version of the will. The tension got so high that allegations of a fake will started flying around like wildfire. Some family members even claimed the document was signed in Los Angeles on a day Michael was actually in New York. It was total chaos, with some of the Jacksons publicly demanding that John Branca and John McClane step down immediately. They felt the executors were outsiders profiting off their brother's blood, while the siblings were being shut out, leaving Catherine Jackson and the children as the sole focus of the empire. It was a power struggle for the crown, but while the family was fighting internally, a much bigger shark was circling in the deep water, the IRS. This was a full-scale, years-long legal war over how much Michael Jackson was actually worth at the moment he passed away. The government argued his image and likeness were worth hundreds of millions, while the estate claimed that, given the scandals at the time, his name was worth almost nothing. Talk about a brutal strategy. The estate basically had to argue Michael's reputation was in the trash, just to save on taxes. After a decade of litigation, a judge finally ruled in favor of the estate, saving the Jackson children hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a massive victory for Branca and McClane, proving that their long-game strategy was paying off in ways the public never saw coming. They protected the pot of gold, and just when you thought the numbers couldn't get any crazier, things hit a whole new level recently. The estate closed a deal with Sony for a staggering $600 million. This was for half of his publishing and recorded music catalog. Think about that for a second. Half of his music is worth more than most entire industries. It's officially the largest deal for a single artist in history. On social media, fans are losing their minds over this. Some people think it's a brilliant move to solidify the future for the kids, while others are worried that selling off the rights means losing control of his artistic soul. Is this smart business or just corporate greed? The reactions are split, but the money speaks for itself. Michael is still the king today. Of course, it hasn't all been smooth sailing and massive paychecks. The estate had to go into combat mode when the Leaving Neverland documentary dropped. It was a massive threat to the brand's value, and many thought it would be the end of the MJ empire. But the executors didn't just sit back. They fought back with lawsuits, public statements, and a focus on Michael's musical genius. They managed to navigate through the largest PR nightmares in history without the fortune taking a permanent hit. Today, the brand is arguably stronger than it was in 2009. From the Broadway musical to the upcoming biopic, the machine keeps turning, ensuring the next generation knows exactly who he was. So what happens next? As Prince Jackson, Paris Jackson, and Biggie Jackson get older, they are slowly stepping into their roles as the true heirs to this massive kingdom. For now, they are finding their own voices, Paris in music, Prince in production, and Biggie staying more behind the scenes. Eventually, they will have full control. Will they keep the business machine running at full speed or step out of the spotlight forever? One thing is for sure, Michael Jackson's estate is the most successful business in Hollywood today, but it came at a high cost. Is it all worth it? You tell us. Do you think Michael would approve of how his money is being handled today? Drop a comment below and let's get the conversation started. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. See you in the next one.